everyone, welcome to Commander Pop Culture. If you like the video, be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified of future content. Welcome to my 7th Commander Masters review. We're going to go over the Planeswalker deck next. Here we go. I already talked about Commodore Guff in the episode 1, but in case you don't know, he has a passive ability where instead you put a loyalty counter on another target Planeswalker you control. And he has a +1 where you put a red wizard into play that can tap for mana to cast Planeswalker spells. And then -3, you draw X cards, deal X damage to each opponent where X number of Planeswalkers you control. So the end step trigger and the uptick are probably the best parts of this card. And he has an eye patch, or is that a monocle? It's not a good resolution, but I think it's a monocle. First creature of the 17, we got Cartographer's Hawk. I'm not a fan of this card because the lands you put into play are tapped. It also has a clause that it has to hit someone with less lands than you. So it's just strictly a catch-up mechanic. And then it bounces itself back to its hand, which I don't know. I don't know why it has to do that. I really hate this card. It deserves to be 42 cents. Next card, we have Fogbank. Fogbank makes sense in this deck because it prevents all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Fogbank. So this thing just stuffs a lot of obnoxious creatures. Grateful Apparition. This card is actually really cool in that it triggers on both hitting Planeswalkers and players, and you get a proliferate trigger. Makes sense in the Planeswalker deck. Oanake Oathkeeper. This is one of the brand new cards for this deck. Creatures can't attack a Planeswalker you control unless the controller pays 1 for each creature they control that's attacking a Planeswalker. Dang. Normally you have to pay 4 mana for that, and it also has a big back end. Like, I already talked about how 4 is like the magic number in terms of stonewalling people. That's pretty awesome. He also has an ability to exile himself from graveyard to return a Planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is an extremely dense card. I think everybody will want it in their white Planeswalker decks. West Coast Explorer. I don't think this gets played much anymore. I'd rather run Knight of the White Orchid because this only puts planes in your hand. And it also cares about the stipulation of who has more lands than you. I hate these kinds of cards. Thrumming Bird. Now this is another version of Grateful Apparition, only it's a little bit older because I think it came out in either New Phyrexia or Scars of Mirrodin because it only triggers on hitting player. That was in a time of Magic where Planeswalkers weren't as common, but now that they are, that's why Grateful Apparition came to be. That you just can see the power creep taking place within the deck. Flux Channeler. This is another sweet card in this deck because there are 42 non-creature spells in this deck, so you're going to be proliferating a lot.
Real tough chick.
She doesn't have the sweet stat blocks like the Oath Keeper and doesn't negate damage like Fogbank. So this is just an asset to you, and you will probably never block with it or attack with it, mainly because the static ability is that good. Leori Spark Touch Hunter, another new card. 3/3 for 3 mana with Flying and Vigilance. Whenever it deals damage to a player, choose a Planeswalker type. Till end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a Planeswalker of that type, you get to copy the ability. That's pretty sweet. The thing that you have to be conscientious of is when you look at a Planeswalker, you see the loyalty uptick and downtick, and then you see a colon. Everything to the left of the colon is the activation requirement, and everything to the right is the activated ability. I imagine when people play Leori, they're going to be doubling or double reducing the counters when you don't. It's strictly everything to the right of the colon. And the cool thing about him is the flying gives you evasion, so you can increase the likelihood of hitting someone, and it has vigilance, so it pulls double duty of blocking for your Planeswalkers. And you can name a Planeswalker type, meaning if you have, say, multiple Jaces in play, you copy their loyalty abilities. I don't know how often that will probably happen, but it's a possibility. This card's really cool. So far, 2 for 2 of these Commander deck spoilers that are just, I think they're A-listers. Sparksheet Provisionary, another new card. At the beginning of your combat of your turn, choose any number of target Planeswalkers you control until end of turn. Become 3/3 bluebird creatures with flying and hexproof. Whenever they deal damage to a player, scry 1. That is pretty awesome. Not only do you make them evasive threats, but you give them hexproof, and you get more benefits for hitting players, so this is kind of a win condition. He's got a big butt, which you also like, protecting your Planeswalkers. This card reminds me of the Sarkhan Ball that turns your Planeswalkers into dragons. The nice thing about both is they don't lose their activated abilities. So if you want to activate your Planeswalkers main phase 2, you can. Wall of Denial. This is another just you could do better kind of a card. I get it. It's got flying and defender, so it blocks a lot of stuff. But you're basically paying 1 mana more for a big toughness stat and shroud. I'd rather play something else for 3 mana. Just seems like a lame addition to the deck. Vigar the Diplomat has the key for toughness, lifelink, and it puts your opponents in a bind because people will want to kill your planeswalkers, and the best way to do that is via combat. And if you attack with 2 or more, you get a draw trigger.
What do you do? What do you do?
The top half of Ningar is like the least common occurring trigger. The bottom one, that's a given. That'll happen on everybody's turn. But I think in the right deck like this one, I think you'll be garnering a lot of attention and probably drawing more frequently than usual if you would play Ningar in any other kind of deck. That's a good addition. Silent Arbiter, another big butt. No more than 1 creature can attack with no more 1 can block. This is a little bit of a double-edged sword because if you're playing against a Voltron strategy, you can't just pile up the blockers on the 1 attacker to save your Planeswalker. So you're kind of robbing yourself of that opportunity, but you're hedging your bets by reducing go-wide strategies. I think that the risk is worth taking. I think this is a good inclusion of the deck. Spark Double. If you didn't know, you can only copy permanents you control, and that permanent has to be either a creature or Planeswalker. And if it's a Planeswalker, it comes in with an additional loyalty. The Spark Double is not legendary. You have to keep both in play, hence why it's like a doubler. Deep Glow Skate has an ETB trigger to double the number of counters on any number of target permanents, so it's like an A-lister in Planeswalker decks. If you could flicker this, like with, say, Venzer. Venzer is a good target for Deep Glow. I don't think it comes in this deck, but that's an easy addition for sure. Jaya's Phoenix. Whenever it deals damage to a player or Planeswalker, copy the next loyalty ability you activate this turn. When you activate it, you may choose new targets. Whenever you cast a Planeswalker spell, you may return the Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. Ooh. Also has flying and haste. Holy cow. I'm normally really used to being disappointed by the Phoenixes, but this one does not. Doubling your Planeswalker abilities and being recurable and being a desirable recursion, this is a nice card. Worst comes to worst, you chump block with the Phoenix and you just get it right back with your next cast. That's a cool new card for this deck too. Kazul Tyrant the Cliffs. Another solid deterrent from people attacking you. Whenever someone attacks you, you make a 3/3 red ogre unless they pay 3. You're effectively tying up their mana if they do decide to attack you. That blocker is nothing to like slouch at or scoff at because it's a 3/3. It could probably effectively block whatever it is you're throwing at your planeswalkers. I like this card. What is it? 75 cents. Makes sense it's in here though. Narset Enlightened Master. First strike and hexproof. Whenever it attacks, you exile the top 4. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature spells from among them without paying their cost. It's good in this deck because there's 42 non-creature spells. You're probably going to hit something every single time. I also like that you could cast any number of them, so you're not letting anything go to waste. However, this is probably going to be the most fair Narset Enlightened Master you'll ever see. Most of the time you see this and it's extra combats, extra turn kind of deck. That'll be a nice breath of fresh air seeing this being played the way it was intended. All right.
And now, the main attraction.
The Planeswalkers. Main draw of this deck. I don't see this Jace Beleren that much because it's a group hug Planeswalker. Gives everyone a draw. Hence why I don't like it. $3, I think that's too much for this card. Jace the Mirror Mage. This card is unique in that I know that there are infinite combos around this. You can kick it to create a token copy of him, and its loyalty is 1. +1, you scry 2. 0, you draw a card. Reveal it. Remove the number of loyalty counters equal to the card's mana value. I don't remember the infinite with this. There was something that combos Jace the Mirror Mage. Help me out in the comments below. Because based on what I'm reading, you somehow draw your whole deck by making infinite copies of Jace. And that's how I think the deck wins. Narset Power Avails. This card is particularly brutal if you're playing wheels. When we get to the sorceries, I'll be looking to see if they include it. If not, that will be an easy upgrade. Saheeli She's great because you get to create blockers passively for casting non-creature spells. Every now and then, you -2 to make an artifact a copy of another artifact until end of turn. I don't think people play this card for that effect, though. They play it for the cannon fodder to keep your Planeswalkers alive. Teo, Geometric Tactician. This is a new Planeswalker. He enters, create a 0/4 wall. Ooh, with flying? Huh. You can target opponent each draw a card. Not a fan of that already. Choose left or right. Until your next turn, each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the last direction and Planeswalker by that opponent. Interesting. It's like Pamronicon, but only on a turn-by-turn basis. I'm not a fan of this Planeswalker. I'd rather play something else. I'd rather play that 3-colored wall that I talked about in the first video over this, where making people attack certain directions is permanent. I also don't like that its uptake is making you and someone else draw. At least it's a target opponent, so you could pick the weakest player at the table and hedge your bets that way, but I still don't like it. Not for $30. All right. If you watched my video yesterday, or if you hadn't, this seems to be the trend where, because people don't know how to price this on TCG Player, it's just the flat $30 in it. And it influences the price up here. That's not a real price point at all. A Johnny Steadfast. So let's turn up to 1 target creature gets +1/+1. -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature and loyalty on each Planeswalker you control. That's pretty nice in a Planeswalker deck. Get an emblem if damage should be dealt to a Planeswalker you control. Prevent all but 1. That's interesting. I don't really like this card. Mostly because you don't run a whole lot of creatures 17. Granted, there are some Planeswalkers in this list that make bodies too, but like, I just don't think you'll have a viable target consistently with its +1 uptick. I think you'll just be using a Johnny as like a segue for something else to put loyalty counters and do the -2 ability way more often. The -7 is cool if you could pull it off, but I doubt it. Chandra, Torch, and Defiance. This is one of my all-time favorites. She does a lot of work. She has card advantage, she has ramp, she has removal, and a win condition. Pretty much the most dense Planeswalker you could ever play. I used to play this in Modern all the time. Love her. What does this go for? Dang, you can get this for $3? Holy cow. I remember when this was a $20 card. If you never played Chandra, Torch, or Defiance, I highly recommend it. Give it a shot. Already talked about Commodore Guff. Jace, Architect of Thought. Till end of turn, whenever creature control... His +1's good because he softens the power of everyone's creatures should they attack you. Leaves it up to an option. Definitely disincentivizes people from doing it. -2, reveal the top 3. Your opponent separates them into 2 piles. Put 1 into your hand, the other on the bottom of your library in any order. It's kind of like a Fact or Fiction, but with only 3 cards. I like that. -8, each player searches library for a non-land card, exile it, shuffle, may cast those cards without paying. Oh, that's a weak -8 ultimate. I mean, you'll get your non-land, which will be the best thing, but like, people are just going to grab their weakest cards for you to cast. It's like, who cares? Nahiri the Harbinger. I've seen people play this. They normally go for the -2 because do like a little gotcha and exile a tapped artifact or tapped creature, or exile a Reggie enchantment. I just don't like that they have to be tapped if you want to target any of those 3. +2 is a looting where you discard a card, draw a card. -8. Search for an artifact or creature and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. Gains haste, return it to your hand at the beginning, end step. I feel like you're going to be playing this just for the removal. And in that case, you might as well play something else for 2 mana or less. I don't like this Nahiri. That's why it breaks my rule of removal. Always 2 mana or less. Narset the Ancient Way. Gain 2 life, add mana to cast on creature spells. Draw a card, then you discard a card. Then you discard a non-land. When you discard an non-land this way, it deals damage equal to the card's mana value to the creature or Planeswalker. Conditional removal, don't like it. Emblem ability, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it deals 2 damage to any target. Fair for $1.27, but I remember when people were playing this, and I remember people gushing about it, and I don't understand why. It does nothing particularly well. I don't know why people like it. The Wanderer. Prevent all non-combat damage shall be dealt to you and other permanents you control. She's nice in that you dodge the damage to Planeswalker spells. I don't see him that often, but could be handy. You never know. And exiling a creature with 4 or greater power is also a relevant ability. But we're at that stage of If you're playing it for removal, better be 2 mana or less. Another new card. Beginning of your end step, deals X damage to each opponent where X number of Planeswalkers you control. That's a pretty sweet passive. Does something the turn you play it, and it has a loyalty ability, so it does 2 things the turn you play it. Add a red for each Planeswalker you control, or 0, remove a loyalty from each of any number of permanents you control. Exile that many cards from the top of your library. I imagine people just do the uptick and play it for the end step clock trigger over anything else. This card's good. I don't think I would pay $30 for it, but I like it. Gideon Jura.
Why?
I haven't seen this since Shards of Alara when Gideon first came out. He basically goads a player into attacking Gideon when he has 8 loyalty, forces that stuff to become tapped, and then you can destroy something for its -2. As 0 abilities, he animates himself into a 6/6. Goading people's creatures kind of doesn't make any difference because they're going to attack your planeswalkers anyways. Its +2 is kind of meaningless. Hey, I was talking about this planeswalker earlier when we talked about that 3-drop creature. Its +1 is it makes your planeswalkers 4/4 dragons, which is way more scarier than the 3/3, but why not run both? And it also has an ability of whenever a creature attacks a planeswalker you control, each dragon deals 1 damage to that creature. If you don't have any dragons in play, you do no damage to the attacking creature, so the passive kind of doesn't really work. The uptick doesn't last till your next turn, so it doesn't protect itself with its activated ability. You have to have dragons in play, which is kind of lame because I did not see any in this deck. Phronos, Mass Inquisitor. I think a lot of people don't know this, but way back in the day in the Magic 2015 game, he was getting hunted, or he was trying to hunt Garruk when he had the Chain Veil, and ultimately Garruk kills him, and that's where his story ends. It's cool that he's getting a representation in a card finally. 8 years for this guy to show up. Uptick 1, up to 2 target planeswalkers phase out. He can't target himself, but that's really cool. Pumps him up to 6 loyalty, so that's really hard to deal with, and you basically make 2 planeswalkers untargetable, unattackable. -2. For each opponent, return up to 1 target non-land permanent the player controls to their hand. That's pretty good. -7. Target artifact you control because a 9/9 artifact creature that gains vigilance and indestructible. Creature can't be blocked. That doesn't make any sense to me. I guess it's offensive and it's defensive because it has vigilance. Ain't gonna die easily because of indestructibility. And it's a threat because it can't be blocked, so I guess it's something, but I'm more interested in the +1 -2 for sure, and more happy about the lore about this around this guy. Chandra, the Awakened Inferno, another planeswalker with an insane uptick because she comes 8 loyalty on the first turn, and she starts a clock on everybody because you give each opponent a emblem that deals a damage to them on their upkeep. She does 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. I don't know if that's relevant enough, but could be a pseudo board wipe. And then -X, you deal X damage to a target creature or planeswalker. Permanent dealt damage to exile instead. I imagine the -X will be
Absolutely, positively necessary.
I want a donut.
but I think all the triggers going to be doing is that +2 and maybe that -3. Elspeth, the Sun's Champion. If you never played against this card or remember the good old days, this card was a banger then, and whenever I have a chance to play Elspeth, or this Elspeth in particular, it still performs the way it has always. This card is amazing. +1, you make 3 bodies, so you make fodder for each opponent. Its -3 is you destroy creatures power 4 or greater, all of them. So it's a board wipe on a planeswalker. She does everything you want it to do. You're cluttering your own board with creatures that don't die to her -3 ability, which clears the board of anything relevant. And then she has a -7 that's a game-ending ability. You get an emblem that gives creatures +2/+2 and flying. Turns all your nobodies into 3/3 scary angel-esque soldiers. Everything works with itself from top to bottom. Unlike Vronos, there's some disconnect. I don't really understand what's going on there. The spells, we got Path to Exile, Source of Plowshares. I don't know if a commander precon's ever featured both in one deck, so that's nice to see. They're the best white removal spells in the game. I'm glad it gets put in here. Guff rewrites history for 3 mana and instant speed. Each player choose a target non-enchantment, land permanent that player controls. Those permanents owners shuffle them into their libraries. Each player who controlled one of those permanents exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, puts the rest in the bottom of their library in random order. Each player may cast. Okay, this is like a souped up version of Chaos Warp. I imagine people will play this. People like Chaos Warp, so why not play this? It's weird that you can't target enchantments. I don't know the story behind that, but that's pretty awesome. Same rate as Chaos Warp and significantly better. Pretty good example. $30. I don't know if it's a 3-mana removal. You're paying more for the versatility of it, and it takes away multiple permanents, so that's pretty darn good. It's definitely worth more than $10. I don't know if it'll hold that around that much because it's getting copies put in the collector boxes, so it's a little iffy, but I like it. Repeated Reverberation. I haven't seen this card in a while. I think it was like an older course at like 18 or 19. Next, instant spell, sorcery spell, or activated loyalty ability. Copy it. Ooh, copy that twice? Oh man, I didn't know this copied things. I knew it copied stuff twice, but I didn't know it copied loyalty abilities. It's way more significant in this deck than I thought it had. I thought it would have been like a weird inclusion. Dang, kind of want to revisit this card in my own decks and play it. That's awesome. Semester's End. It's a unique protection spell. You can cast this at instant speed to dodge certain removal. I don't know. It doesn't see that much play because it's 4 mana. It's not exactly easy to leave that much mana untapped and pass the turn. You're basically doing nothing on your turn to hold this up. So I don't know how I feel about it. It's $1 for a reason. I think I'd just play something else. It's Furious Protection, but I don't know if that's an affordable option. Promise of Loyalty. Each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control and sacks the rest. Each of those creatures can attack you or planeswalkers you control. Oh, huh. I kind of like that. Making people sack all their creatures lets you get around Flawless Maneuver and the Heroic Intervention. And then the counter the one that does survive gets a counter that basically says it can't mess with you. I like this board wipe. Got my respect there. Versus Ruinous Blast. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. I think of the legendary sorcery cycle, it's one of the better ones. It's just kind of a bummer because it doesn't take away people's commanders. But you dodge blowing up your own, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of relevant non-legendary stuff worth destroying, or exiling rather. The exile is pretty nice too. 70 cents, that's a deal. I'd play it for the versatility of it. It just sucks because you need a legendary creature or planeswalker in play in order to cast it. So if you need a board wipe and you don't have one of those two in play, you're going to get hosed. Boiler Gatewatch. I don't like this card. It depends on RNG. You look at the top 7 and you could put up to 2 planeswalkers from among them into play. I think you'd be lucky if you put 1 planeswalker into play with this, let alone making up the mana difference of 6 mana. Just play card advantage instead. I hate this card. Blasphemous Act. Awesome board wipe. Most of the time you cast this, it's for 1 red mana, and you don't really care about the damage because it's only dealing damage to creatures, and your planeswalkers come out the other end unscathed. It's 3 board wipes. I'd probably cut the Deploy the Gatewatch and Semester's End and the Repeated Reverberation for more. Or even take away the single target removal and replace those with board wipes. I feel like when I see Super Friends decks, they're equal parts Super Friends and equal parts board wipes because the board wipes don't affect you. Care less.
Emotional damage!
With that being said, there are 3 in this deck, which is, I don't know, I feel like the bare minimum. Artifacts, Obligatory Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, but what do we have here? We have Signets. Whoa, all 3 of them, and all 3 of the Talismans. Okay, I don't know who was in charge of building this deck compared to the Sliver deck, but they did a heck of a lot better with its ramp package. Wish the Slivers didn't get as badly hosed. And then we got Wayfarer's Bauble. This is a new card. Gatewatch Beacon. Enter battlefield with 3 loyalty. I think this is the first time I've seen loyalty counters being placed on something other than planeswalkers. So I kind of like that little liberty they took with makes this card a little more fresher. It's a mana rock that adds for 1 white. not a good rate of 3 mana, but hold on. Whenever a Planeswalker enters the battlefield under control, if this has a loyalty counter on it, you may move a loyalty counter from it to that Planeswalker. That's pretty cool. I still don't like that you're paying 3 mana for a rock. What's the price tag? 30. Oh god, no, don't pay $30 for this. It's it's kind of a quality of life card. Oh, that's kind of cool. Underworn Shaku. It taps for colorless, but if you tap a legendary permanent, meaning your Planeswalkers, you get to untap this, so you get to make more mana. I've never actually ran this card in any of my legendary decks. I kind of want to go back and just shoehorn this in there and give it a try, because that should theoretically make a lot of mana in historic decks. Hey, it's another board wipe, and it doesn't blow up your Planeswalkers. Perfect. Chain Veil, that's a $22 card. Pretty obligatory actually for Planeswalker decks. I'm surprised to see it in here. If you don't know what it does, at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability, you lose 2 life, but that should never happen. It's 4 activate. For each Planeswalker control, you may activate loyalty abilities an additional time. That's pretty sweet. Unlike the copying of loyalty abilities, this lets you activate them again and add or take away more loyalty counters. It's quite significant. Glad to see it here. Norn's Annex. I don't really like this card, because paying 2 life is pretty negligible. But the fact that you're playing a Planeswalker deck, you're adding a ton of extra hit points to your life total, because people are going to be trying their damnedest to take care of it. So maybe you could rack up some serious life off of this card. And if you get them low enough, then they can never mess with you at a certain point. I'd rather run something cheaper. Like, you could pay 4 life and 3 mana to play this, but I'd rather just play Propaganda or Ghostly Prison for this kind of Pill of 40 effect. $37. I avoided this card because I don't think 2 life is enough, but people in the comments, let me know if you've had better luck with this card. I'm not really impressed by it though. Oath of Gideon puts additional loyalty on your Planeswalkers so that they enter. Oath of Jace. Now this is actually pretty darn good. You get to draw 3 and discard 2, but that's not the part that really matters. You get to Scry X, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. I've actually played this enchantment in my Flicker decks, mostly for that card advantage piece. Never have I ever taken advantage of the bottom ability, so that's kind of cool. Oath of Teferi. Now this is a pretty sweet oath. When it enters, you can exile a target permanent you control, return to the battlefield, so you could effectively reset a Planeswalker if it had low loyalty on it. And then you may activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers control twice each turn rather than only once. Nice. It's basically the Chain Veil, but for 2 additional colors and an additional mana. Integral for Planeswalker decks. $1.44. Holy cow. That's really affordable for a really good enchantment. All right, the mana base. I was really disappointed in the Sliver one. Okay, I forgot to mention the filter lands, but these are also really cheap. $4. Okay, untapped, 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 although you're in a triple color deck, so let's see, put a loyalty on Guff when he enters, but I imagine you're going to be strapped for mana that you won't just have this untapped, ready to go. I'd rather make this into mana fixing of some kind. Got the Snarls in here. I don't like them so much because the likelihood of them entering tapped is pretty good, but I like the odds way more than just strictly tapped, so I guess it has some level of respect for me. Ooh, Interplanar Beacon. This is good mana fixing. 18 Planeswalkers. Makes sense why it's here. Karn's Bastion. For 4 mana, you proliferate. The only time you do that is if you have nothing better to do, because it ties up 5 mana. It's not very efficient. Mobile District. Another colorless land in the 3-colored deck. The activated ability of 4 costs 1 less for each legendary creature and Planeswalker you control, and it's a 3/3 citizen with vigilance until end of turn. Well, if you have 4 Planeswalkers, you could activate this for 0, be offensive, and then you could activate it for 0 on anybody else's turn to animate it. I feel like this card will just get people, like when they attack, they don't realize this is in your pile of lands, and then you just surprise, I have a blocker, and then you kill their creature. Definitely a feel bad moment for the attacker. It's on them for not making you unpile your lands, and if you're piling your lands and hiding this thing purposely, that's kind of a scummy move. Don't do it. I don't like this card for multiple reasons, but the main one being that you need to fix your mana, and this doesn't do it for a relatively unimportant reason. Period landscape, don't like it. Hey, Mystic Gate, all right. More filtering untapped lands. You have to be kind of careful though, because I've had so many games happen to me where I didn't have one of its 2 requirements, so I could filter mana, and then it's just a colorless producing land. And if you think it can't happen to you, I assure you it does happen a lot. But I think it's worth the risk because it comes in untapped. At least you could tap it for any color, or all the colors of your deck. Or Snarl Us cards, the obligatory Prairie Stream. I don't think you would need Reliquary Tower in this deck. I did not see any cards that say draw a ton of cards for you to hold on to. Why is it in here? I would have rather saved my money of $3 and put a better land in, a fixing land, another filter land. I love these expanses. I kind of forgot about these too. Wish they put these in the sliver decks. I find these better than filter lands because you could put any mana into it to make one of each color. And then we're on the temples, which I don't like. Only 4 guaranteed enter tap lands. Good job. Like, why can't you build most mana bases like this? I can accept the snarls. We're past the point of putting temples in our decks, and maybe even these cons, triple color, Shards of Alara cards. You don't need them, and I'm happy with this mana base, minus those 4 and the random Reliquary Tower and Mobilized District. Didn't have those, you'd have an affordable and kick-ass mana base. Final thoughts about this deck. For being a Planeswalker deck, I found a lot of the Planeswalkers to be kind of underwhelming. The best ones were Elspeth, Sarkhan, the Masterless, and then the list keeps getting shorter. Chandra, Torch of Defiance. We have a Narset in here, even though we don't have any wheels. Yeah, there's 3 Planeswalkers plus your commander that are actually good. That's kind of disappointing. Your creature setup is better than your Planeswalkers, and this is a Planeswalker deck.
I mean, what's the deal with
that? I was excited. Like, we started off really good with this creature package. It wasn't too committed. I only hated 2 creatures in this whole pile of cards. They all did what you want to do in a Planeswalker Matters deck. Come on. I think you could have done better. This new removal spell, pretty primo. It's probably going to be the most expensive card. I think it'll have a high demand. And, when I said it, I think it's worth more than 10. After I said that and thought about how many decks that have red that will want this, I think it'll be every single one of them. I can see this settling above 20. And in that case, you're pretty close to 30. It'll be interesting to see if I'm right post, the craze and when the sales of everything goes down, where this price settles at, and if I'm right or not. And the mana ramping package, why can't you do this in other decks? And it's solid board wipes. Man, you did 82% of this deck right, and then you get to this part, the most integral, and you kind of poop the bed a little bit. Only 3 of them are good. Damn, this video started off good. It's a little disappointing. How do I think this would perform against the Sliver deck, since we've already talked about it? I think this deck is head and shoulders above the Sliver deck. I think it would stomp the living hell out of the Sliver deck. Okay, so Guff was sitting at 60. It's at 83 now. So now the Enchantress deck is the cheapest. Let's review the value here. A lot of the unique cards to this deck are actually really strong. And then they put the Chain Veil in here. Of the 10 unique cards in this deck, you want 6 of them. Which is a lot better than the Sliver deck. I only wanted 1 from that, maybe 2 if you're counting the red one. That's a much better rate. So good job. I think whoever designed this deck, you came this close to making a damn near really solid sealed product. And if the Planeswalker setup was a little bit better, I'd say you would have been able to open this straight from the box and hold your own against fine-tuned decks.
Missed it by that much.
And I think if you did have a better Planeswalker package, this deck would have been selling like hotcakes. It probably would have ended up being worth more than this Eldrazi deck, if you did. So I hope Wizards keeps improving. I hope, if I'm lucky, someone will see this video and be like, you know what, we could have done better, and we could have satisfied our customers, and you were just kind of nags at me. It makes you want to pull out my hair. I was genuinely happy right up until this part. Have a good night. Bye.